All right, so today we're talking about mastering your Zoho data. I think of this as your essential guide to data quality and getting your organization ready for the future, especially for the future of things like AI. So this is the question I posed. Think about a time when data problems caused a significant setback. What was the root cause? Did you even know what the root cause was? And how could it have been prevented with better data management? So that is the focus of today's presentation. We're going to be talking about the data throughout all of your Zoho apps. The problems is what I'm going to first talk about, the potential problems, because sometimes we don't even know about all of them. And then we'll switch gears and talk about the specific tools within your Zoho apps that you may or may not already know about. I'm Candace Doriso. I think you all know me. Not much to say here, but here I am. Nice little picture my husband put in there for me. All right. So how data quality impacts reporting and AI. So if you want to have really powerful reporting or you want to think about integrating AI into your business, you have to have great data quality. Having great data quality allows your business more growth. It allows for innovation because you can see the possibilities. It gives you a competitive advantage, of course, because you may see potential in your own business, maybe with a particular product, service, or area of the country that you wouldn't see without that robust reporting. And of course, it reduces your data risk. So this could be things like anomaly detection, preventing fraud. Just imagine if you were depending on a forecast report and it was based on bad data. That would be a waste of your time. And that is not what we want. That is not how you want to be running your business. And this is where we get to the silent saboteur. It's a little cheesy, but I am a little cheesy. So bad data and siloed data, those are the two silent saboteurs. So bad data meaning the information in your systems is just not correct. Siloed means it's not talking to each other. So if you have disconnected systems, one system has information, another one does. They maybe have duplicate information. If they're not talking to each other, it's going to lead to problems. And this creates, of course, a broken data pipeline. So the most common issues I want to get into, this is like the monster of all data issues slide I could think of. First is manual data entry error. We are humans. We make errors. We're not computers. While there is stuff that needs to be manually entered, the more manual data entry you have, the higher likelihood you're going to have data issues. It's just obvious and simple, right? The second, of course, is system integrations gone wrong. So either you have your systems integrated, let's say system A and system B, but they're not integrated correctly. Maybe your field mapping is wrong. Maybe the integration is broken and you don't even know it. That has happened many times. Being aware of what's going on with all of your systems is important. Third one is lack of governance. And a lot of people roll their eyes when I talk about this, but this is just documenting for your own purposes. How do we collect data? How do we manage that data? When do we dispose of that data? And you'll see a lot of these big organizations getting certifications for your good data, like ISO. Getting an ISO certified means that you actually have data governance rules and policies. So it doesn't have to be a formal document you submit to the government, but it should be at least basic rules. The next one is legacy systems. There's a lot of great software out there, but it's old and it's outdated and maybe it doesn't connect with the cloud, in other words, the internet. And it may be causing technical debt for your organization. And that's not something you really want. What you want is to make sure that your business can keep flowing no matter what. So even if that legacy system was working for you last year, it might not be working for you 3 years from now. And so how can you plan out 3 years? Maybe you're not going to switch this year, but you have to decide when you're going to move into a more fluid connection. The fourth one is one we often don't think about, which is mergers and acquisitions. If your business merges with another business or it gets acquired by another business, that means a change in leadership often, changing hands. And that also means software sometimes gets updated or changed or shifted. So having those data governance policies and knowing what is where will help prevent that issue. And then of course, the last one, the one I harp on probably the most, is user negligence. Also just not training your people. So leaders must be the ones to drive training. They must be the ones saying, you need to know how to use this correctly. Because if the leaders don't know how to use it, forget it. The team's not going to listen to you. That's just how business works. That's how people work. They listen to the leader. People will not necessarily take the initiative on their own most of the time. Unfortunate. So let's get to the meat. The 5 things we're going to talk about today in cleansing your data is preparation, deduplication, data entry standards, incomplete data, and your ongoing data hygiene. So preparation and backup. There is a built-in backup feature in almost every Zoho app, and I will show you a screenshot of what that looks like shortly. It can be available on demand, as in like you click and say, I want it now, or you can run it on a schedule. So for example, in Zoho CRM, which I will use the CRM as most of my references today because I know a lot of us are on it. It's the most commonly used app. In my CRM, I have it scheduled for twice a month. And then I can save it to either a cloud server somewhere else or even just to my local drive, whatever works best for you. So this is what that looks like in CRM. And again, I did screenshots so that we don't have technical issues, but if you do want me to dig around and show you, I can. So you go to your setup, and under data administration, you'll see data backup. And frankly, this is true in every Zoho app. If you look for either data backup or backup, like if you search through the setup menus, you will find this. And so you can see mine is set for twice a month on a Thursday. So every Thursday, I think it's like 7 or 8 a.m., I get an email that says, hey, here's your latest CRM data backup. And this is a full database backup that comes through as like a spreadsheet, pretty much. This is definitely available also in Zoho Books, because I've done that as well. Deduplication. This is a common one, especially when you're new on Zoho or when you're doing regular imports. So you can prevent duplication by doing things like having a unique field, and I'm going to show you some screenshots for that too. For most of us, leads and contacts, being the example, we're using an email address as our unique identifier. So how do you know that John Smith in your leads is not the John Smith in your contacts? They have 2 completely different email addresses. That's one. Some people use mobile phone number. Other people might use some other unique identifier like a customer number. Whatever it is, set a field that says this is what makes this person unique, and that will help prevent duplication. Please also remember to make that field required. It's very funny how some people say, oh, I made sure that email is set unique. But if it's not a required field, then it's not being entered. If there's no email address, then you can't really dedupe. The second is manual deduplication. If you are in, let's say, the CRM record, by the way, the same goes for Zoho Books, and basically anywhere else where you have a customer database or services or products database, any kind of database list where it should be unique, you can do a manual dedupe where you say, search for someone based on an email address, search for them based on whatever it is. You'll see it as merge records. So you can do that and you can see the records side by side and say, oh, yes, this is the same person. If it's not, you can say cancel. This is not, I don't want to merge these 2. And then the second one, or third one, excuse me, is mass deduplication. You can always go from the list view of your leads or contacts under actions and choose mass deduplication. And that will say, it will pick a field, let's say email address or company name, whatever you choose that is unique. It'll automatically merge records for you. The only records it will not automatically merge are those where there are unique fields. So if you got those 2 John Smiths in your leads, but one of the Johns, and they have the same email address, your unique identifier, but one of them has a different company name, it will ask you to confirm and resolve the problem. And that's where you'll see the side by side of the 2 records. You can pick which fields you like and merge them. And the last part of deduplication is automated deduplication. So you can use Zoho Data Prep to do that. If you do not have Zoho One, if you have Zoho One, you have Data Prep. You've probably just never used it. Data Prep is also built into Zoho Analytics. So if you don't have that, you can also use Zoho Analytics to do this. That is a little bit more complicated for me to explain, but I want you to know that it is there and we can always help you set that up. So this is what I'm talking about with unique fields. So here's a screenshot where the email, first of all, red meaning required, unique, magical, important word there. So you want to make sure that you choose do not allow duplicate values. If you use the email address, actually, I think you can, as long as there's a corresponding field, so email address or customer number or whatever, you can say check the leads and the converted leads, or you can say check leads and contacts. And I usually recommend that second one because a converted lead is a contact. So it's just a better setting to choose. And then this is where that deduplicate is. So you're in that list view. Under actions, you'll choose deduplicate leads. And then you'll see the side by side. If Carissa Kidman was in here twice with the same email address, you'll see what is the difference between these two records, if there is any difference. If there's no difference, just automatically merge for you. And it will tell you how many were merged. Data entry standards. I like standard operating procedures. I like SOPs because they give us guide rails to keep everybody on the same page. And you can combine your standard operating procedures with your governance, right? So if I say, this is how we create a deal name is always first name or company name dash the type of deal. If you follow those kinds of procedures and you include the technical steps, like when you're in the CRM, look for this button. So your SOP can be a mixture of the theoretical how-to as well as the step-by-step how-to. And that will help save a lot of the issues with manual data entry issues. My second recommendation with that is if you can make videos to correspond with your SOPs, it really helps users. The second one is pick lists. I love a good pick list. Pick lists prevent user error because instead of having a text field, if you only have certain options, you can't mess that up. So one of the ones people don't always think about is the state field. I actually like using a state field pick list, and it just has all of the 2-letter acronyms, right, for each state. That's an easy one. Or your industries or your lead source. Instead of trying to put it in a text field where you are open to error, put it in a pick list whenever possible. That's just an easy win. And similar to a pick list would be a lookup field. If your referral person is a lead or a contact, make it a lookup field to find that contact instead of making a text field with the person's name. Validation rules. I'll show you what this looks like in a second, but validation rules are like an underdog. They're such a powerful tool, especially in like the CRM and the finance suite, and they can really help keep things clean. A validation rule might say, if somebody enters, I'll use the state again, the state as the full state name, say, nope, we don't do full state names. I only want the 2 letters. You can basically make a formatting rule as people are entering data. It's not perfect, but it works. And of course, coming back to Zoho data prep, what I'm cheering for the most is using that to format data on a regular basis. There is a video I'm linking in here, so I'll link to it. We've made a lot of videos about data cleaning on our YouTube channel. I highly recommend. I will show you how you can get an idea behind Zoho data prep. First, this is a validation rule. So a validation rule, I would go into modules and fields in the CRM, just again as an example. I say, when criteria is met, field, verify, and save. That means I'm not going to allow someone to save it until it's verified. So the state field, which I referenced before, the number of characters equals 2. It must equal 2 when the country is the United States. Please use the state abbreviation. That's a little error message that pops up. So let's see what that user experience is. So I typed in South Dakota, and it says, nope, please use the state abbreviation. It's not going to let me save the field until I make it SD, and I check the box. Such a simple tool, but when it comes to manual data entry, this can save you a lot of time and headache. Otherwise, you're going to have a report that says 5 people are in South Dakota and 2 are in SD. And that doesn't make any sense. This is a little preview of Zoho data prep. I won't go any further, but basically the gist is we saw that several companies and first names were entered in all caps. We wanted to correct it. And Zoho Data Prep, using this as the pipeline, that's how you set it up, allows us to clean up that formatting and instead make it title case, which is first letter capital, the rest are lowercase. Very simple win, but at the same time, it makes your data cleaner so that I'm not sending an email to Melissa. I'm sending it to Melissa because you're shouting at someone. Number 4, inaccurate data, incomplete data. So use your reports to identify data gaps. I've referenced this a few times, but if you're looking at your reports and you have 10 different industries in your industry pick list, and for some reason you see this other industry of other, and you know that's not in your pick list, that's a big red flag. So checking those, having those reports and checking them regularly will help you identify problems. The second, of course, Zia. If you are not familiar with Zia, that is Zoho's AI that is built into all of their apps. They are adding more and more. We can have a separate conversation about AI later, but it's exciting, especially simple things like data enrichment. What it does is searching the internet for the person's email address or phone number and trying to populate the fields that it can. The choice to delete versus archive. I rarely recommend deleting records. I think the only time I've ever deleted a record, especially in the CRM, is when there literally has been no contact. Maybe it was just a total junk lead that came in through my contact form. I knew it was garbage, so I deleted it. Most of the time, I recommend archiving records. By archiving, I don't mean that it literally goes to a place called archive. You would probably have some kind of pick list, maybe active versus inactive archive, and then you can use that field to filter out those people if you don't want to see them. That's usually safer than trying to delete them, because as soon as you delete them, you lose all the things that go with them. And the fourth one is the big player, and I kind of squished it into one bullet point, so bear with me. Guide and train your users using the tools that are built in. So client scripts, wizards, and blueprints. Client scripts are kind of like validation rules, but way more powerful because there's a lot more if-then scenarios you can put in there. Wizards are exactly what they sound like. Simplify. Maybe you have 50 fields in a lead record, but you want to make it easy. Well, you can use a wizard to only show, let's say, the first 5 fields and have them fill that out. Or maybe you want to have it on multiple screens just to guide someone through the user experience because they're on the phone while doing it. And then blueprints are very strict guidelines for the step-by-step process that happens within and the blueprints, by the way, are in CRM, they're in projects, they might also be in Zoho Finance Suite, but they're very strict guidelines that take you through the process of creating someone, guiding them, etc. So this is what enriched data looks like. I put in my own email address. It populated a phone number, a website, an industry. It actually allowed me to find the industries in my pick list and choose the correct one, which was really interesting because that's a brand new feature they finally fixed. And it filled in my address, which was really great. And it was all based on just my email address. And then client scripts, this is a simple one, but it was one that was really useful to me. So whenever we sell hours packages, you have 90 days to use them. So we have this project start date in the deals module, and I had set it to something else. The project end date was set to July 8th. When I updated the project start date, my client script ran and said, hey, I'm going to update the end date to September 30th because that is 90 days after the start date. That's just one example of how you can fix, address, better automate the user experience so you don't have errors. So for ongoing maintenance, again, I've kind of touched upon all of these, but schedule regular data cleanups. And that really could just be that you run quarterly reports on where you have data gaps and know that you need to spend a day just doing cleanup. That's a really
there is a question regarding this. What reports should they use to identify data gaps or inaccuracies?
I think it depends on each account. The ones that I personally have in my account are going to be different from yours. So wherever you've seen problems before, I see it most often, funny enough, in the leads module, right? Because the leads module is usually taking the most raw data. So any field where you've previously seen inaccuracies, I would start there. And then the second one I would look for is any fields that are important to you. So for me, maybe knowing if it's a legacy Zoho user, that's really important. And that's like a checkbox in mine. So I have a report that says, well, how many legacy users did I get this month in my leads? And if something just looks funny, what's interesting is Zia will tell me it's an anomaly because I can run that. They'll say, usually you get 10 leads per month and one of them is a Zoho user. Zia will help run that. So it really depends on what fields you had past problems with and fields that are important to you and how you qualify and evaluate. Hope that answers the question. It's hard. I'm trying really hard to be broad so that it applies to everyone. And of course, with that goes the continuous training. Now, I wouldn't say you need to train your team every quarter. That might be overkill, but maybe twice a year. And it doesn't have to be like a 2-day intensive training, but you should look to your processes and give them a refresher maybe twice a year, because I'm sure every 6 months something has shifted. And if you haven't documented it and enforced for people to follow it, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And of course, the third one was integrate wisely. By that, I mean map your fields correctly. I cannot tell you how many times people say, oh my gosh, I don't know where all my leads for XYZ campaign went. And it turned out the field mapping was wrong. It's just that simple. If you're mapping the first name field to the last name field, that's going to cause some problems. And if you don't have a lead status, for example, that's going to cause some problems. I wanted to also show you a very brief screenshot of Zoho Data Prep. Your pipeline could look like this. Grab leads from the CRM. I want you to clean them up. And this is actually my CRM, what we do. We clean up the phone field on a regular basis. Whoops, sorry, I went forward. The phone field. I take out all the special characters and we just simplify it, and then it updates those CRM records. So enough of my yammering. I want to hear from you guys. I'm curious, just think about this. One small change you think you can make today that would have a ripple effect on you and your team. And I'll just exit this presentation because it's probably boring to look at. If you have particular topics you want us to talk about, we can do that. And I'm happy to do that. I'm wide open to your ideas and requests. Thank you again, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.